In terms of looking ahead, the Humboldt County General Plan, the process has dragged on a long time throughout the entire term of the outgoing 5th District Supervisor, and I think some before that. Where do you come down on the tug of war between those who want more infill in established communities versus those who want to sprawl out more in some of the more rural outlying areas?
That question shows bias. But, you know, I think option A and some elements of B that are geared towards infill, because you need people near your transit stops in order to maintain public transit. You need to concentrate your growth in urban areas because that's where the infrastructure is. The more we sprawl into rural areas, the more we take the place of working lands like ranches and timberlands. I think really one of the most important things is that we do not build on prime agricultural soils other than those that are previously zoned. You know, the center of McKinleyville actually is zoned for infill, and it has infrastructure for growth. But even then, I think cluster development to leave some open space for community gardens is a good idea. In McKinleyville, I would really like to see the McKinleyville Community Advisory Committee formed. We were promised that in 2002. That plan was put in place before Joe Duffy was installed, and yet in 2003, when that committee was supposed to be pulled together, we still didn't get it.
Real quick on public safety, do you feel the resources allocated towards Humboldt County sheriffs and how they're serving McKinleyville, other parts of North County is adequate? And the flip side of that, the county voted to, supervisors voted to establish a law enforcement committee to review policies, practices, and procedures. It was a split vote 3-2 with Supervisor Duffy coming out against. Is law enforcement review something you want to see happen? And what about those public safety resources and how they're allocated?
Well, I think we've seen substantial improvement in McKinleyville in terms of the allocation of resources, the construction of the substation. I don't hear a great deal of dissatisfaction with the service that we're currently provided. Although I do notice that the police blotter in the McKinleyville Press is pretty active. I think we need to do more to do neighborhood watch, and I'll try to help revitalize and foster and, if necessary, reorganize neighborhood watch programs. I think the SCO program, where seniors use police cars to give the appearance of greater coverage and monitor to tip at the enforcement agency, it's a good idea. And I think that the participation in that is kind of cyclical, and we need a new injection of energy in that. In difficult economic times, some people fall into desperate circumstance, and then they become predatory, and it's something we have to look out for. With regard to oversight of the police, I don't think it's a bad idea. I have the greatest respect for law enforcement personnel. It's not a job that I would like to take, so I think that they are, you know, they're our first line of defense and our allies for maintaining civilization and for, you know, our quality of life, our feeling of safety. And that said, I don't think that police powers, when you have no oversight, will necessarily self-regulate. And so I don't think we have a problem with present. I don't have a problem with oversight.
As far as those folks who have hit hard times, obviously the county has a lot of responsibility overseeing social services, running the MAC facility, and so forth. Are you satisfied with how services for the poor, homeless folks in the community are currently being dispensed? What changes, if any, would you like to see there?
Well, I think that's an increasing challenge, Charles. We're in hard times, and there's an index of it. You just look on the corners in Arcata and parts of Eureka, and there is a large homeless population. Some of them by choice. This is also interlinked with mental health problems, where, you know, under Ronald Reagan, you know, just better to cut the costs from the state and externalize them onto the locals, and essentially now we have homeless that are without services. And I think that's an area that I'm extremely concerned about. I saw Mrs. Carter on television the other night, Jimmy Carter's wife, and I think Rosalind, we should get Rosalind up here because it's a problem that's pervasive nationwide, doesn't have a solution, the press doesn't cover it, and yet we have epidemic problems with mental illness.
In terms of political reform, obviously some folks feel there's some very long lived members of the Board of Supervisors, and that term limits might be one solution for that. Also the issue of political contributions. Some folks have called for campaign contribution caps to limit the influence of big money in our local elections. And of course ranked choice voting to get this over with in one round instead of having what's likely to be a runoff in both of our supervisor races this year. Where do you come out on that?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's going to be a runoff in my race. I think I've got a very good shot to take it in June. People really appreciate my service on the Harbor District. Those in power do not necessarily favor my elevation. The press sometimes is the last to know, and so just don't bet a lot against me in June. But thank you for this interview, and thanks for this other form of alternative media. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for the several debates. There's been 3 major debates they're co-sponsoring. The Realtors had a debate. We were on David Cobb's radio program, KHSU, Thursday Night Talk. All of these help to counteract the power of money and propaganda, as it were, in elections. And I have favored campaign finance reform. I work for it at a state level with clean money, and I would recommend that people surf on the internet and look at California Clean Money. This is publicly financed elections. I think it's a good investment. It would reduce graft. It would essentially make sure that the corporations weren't running our government, and it's working in Maine and Arizona, and it's something that we should have. Unfortunately, it's not favored either by the Democrats or Republicans because they're both entrenched power interests. And I don't think that we'll really truly be free until we have publicly financed elections, and then we can of course take our media back, reestablish fairness in media, not the Fox type of fairness, but rather true balance, where if you listen to Rush Limbaugh for 3 hours, you got to listen to Amy Goodman following that up. With regard to ranked choice voting, I think it's a very interesting idea. I think that it could be easily supported if we had publicly financed election software. Check out openvoting.org on the internet, and I helped put that website together because we can't be assured that we're free until our election system is run on transparent codes, and the election results should be available at the speed of light on the night of the election, and they could be hack-proof, just like the software that runs the internet, Apache. There's a network of very dedicated public source, open source programmers who defend the software, and what you see is that the private software, like Diebold and those other companies, what you see there is that those things are cheap, they're hackable, and the fact that our election machines in this nation and across the world are running on these is just clearly a benefit to those entrenched interests because they can rig elections.
So